Melbourne's Stage 4 restrictions are set to expire in just 3 weeks' time. So what's the plan? Will restrictions be wound back? Do we go from Stage 4 to 3, or do we go from 4 to something even lighter than that? Will we even get out of Stage 4 at all? And what's the Andrews government plan to get businesses back up on their feet and workers back in jobs? These are just some of the questions where the Chief Executive of the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Paul Guerra, wants answers. Vicky's urging the government to outline a clear plan about what will happen when current restrictions end, as we're told they will, on the 13th of September. Paul joins me now in Melbourne. Thank you for your time, Paul. Is the Victorian government consulting with business leaders when it comes to winding back these restrictions and what that might look like in 3 weeks' time?
What's the road ahead for business, not only from September 13th, but do we go into Stage 3 in metropolitan area? Do we go into Stage 2 back into regional Victoria? But more importantly, how do we accelerate out of this phase to catch where the rest of the states are at?
Paul, we had an issue with your audio at the start there. Are you saying that you're having those consultations? Is that the debate you're having internally with ministers, or you're not having it?
Certainly we're having conversations with the state on behalf of our members at the moment, Peter, yes. So, and ultimately what business is wanting is how do we get out of this? What happens on September 13th? And
are you getting answers?
Nothing in clarity at the moment, and that's what we're waiting on. You know, we're less than 3 weeks away now. We've business in good faith entered into these 6 weeks knowing that the numbers were too high, the numbers that needed to come down, and they have. What business now needs is the certainty around September 13th, what it looks like, not only in metropolitan Melbourne, but across regional Victoria as well. And in some cases, regional Victoria hasn't seen the virus, and yet they're in Stage 3 lockdown. We need to get out of this. We need to get to where the rest of the states in Australia are.
I live very close to the Melbourne CBD, and I went walking through there within my 5 kilometres, of course, on the weekend, and it is a ghost town. It is devastating. There are a number of businesses that have already got police signs in windows. I can't see them coming back. A number of big restaurateurs have made contact with me, absolutely up in arms at the thought that there might be an extension of the state of emergency. Give me a sense of the impact that's being felt, obviously, in the Melbourne CBD, but in the satellite suburbs and the outer parts of Melbourne. What's happening?
Yeah, as you well know, Peter, the CBD in Melbourne is probably best described as sad. It doesn't have the vibrancy that it had just 6 months ago, and we need to see that back. Hospitality sector, particularly in the CBD Melbourne, is struggling whilst they've been able to move to takeaway. That's giving them some form of cash flow, but it's by no means helping them get through what will be a really difficult period. 6 months ago, Victoria had global reputation in our bars and cafes and even events. We don't have that now. We need to get that back. Out in suburbia Victoria, some of the hospitality is doing better because, of course, everybody's at home, so that's a good thing. But across regional Victoria, where really the spread of the virus is well and truly contained, they're having to deal with Stage 3 lockdown as well. And so there's questions right across the state now. We've done this in good faith. We've got less than 3 weeks to go. What does the plan look like to not only get out of this current phase, but what is the signposting that means that we can go, if in fact we go to Stage 3, how do we get to Stage 2, and ultimately, how do we get out of this? What are the numbers that are needed to make sure that we don't end up back here again?
Well, your members all run businesses that have a business plan. You have a board meeting with a framework. You know what success looks like. You know what all the stages are in an action plan for business. We're not seeing this from government. I know this is unprecedented times, but we certainly know where we want to get to, and that's to have lower cases of transmission. And I just think the lack of clarity is also hitting confidence levels in businesses hard. There's talk, as you know, of this state of emergency exemption for an additional 12 months. It's going to be debated in the Parliament. Right now, the Liberal opposition says it will not support a 12-month extension. Michael O'Brien's on the show tonight. He said today he wants to see it sort of month by month. It'll come down to the crossbench. What would your message be to them tonight?
The message from our members today, and we'll have more on this tomorrow when we get the full survey through. In a couple of hours, we've got quite a strong response. Interestingly, Peter, the response was around tell us what's happened after September 13. Tell us how we get the business, our businesses up and working. Tell us whether we can go back to work or not. Tell us whether we can have the staff there. We need this forecast in advance because the manufacturer would need supplies to be able to manufacture, and hospitality will need stock in there. And of course, most businesses will need to retrain the staff. In terms of the state of emergency, there was less commentary about that. There is concern, obviously, in terms of what it means. Our view, and we'll talk to our members tomorrow. We've had a briefing with the government this afternoon, and certainly I've spoken to the opposition leader, Michael O'Brien, this afternoon as well. We'll put that to the members tomorrow and get the sense. But there is confusion, best to say. There is confusion around, does the state of emergency impact the ability for businesses to reopen and give us the clear roadmap after September 13. Our understanding from the government is the two are separate issues. So what we're asking for is let's get the business roadmap so that as owners, we know what needs to occur. As employees, we know whether we can go back into the office or not, and let the state of emergency debate play out between the opposition and the government.
Just before we go, Jeff Kennett, former Premier, said yesterday this is damaging to brand Victoria. What do you say to that?
Yeah, there's an argument for that. I mean, when you think about international investment into Victoria, when we're talking about an extended state of emergency, there is repercussions in terms of, do I invest in Victoria or do I invest in another state? And certainly the event sector has let us know today that every mention of state of emergency means that an event that might have otherwise come to Victoria may actually go to another state. And that's the danger in this. The rest of it, we understand that there needs to be things put in place to make sure that the health pandemic, which is ultimately what we're all dealing with here, is able to be successfully managed by the government to make sure that things like masks and even quarantine is able to be adhered to. So there's probably discussion both sides, but certainly what we want to see and what our members want to see is how do Victorians get back to work, and importantly, how do we get out of this so that we can get to where the rest of the state of Australia are.
Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Paul Guerra, thank you for your time tonight.
Pleasure, Peter. Thanks.